Hey, I'm the Wildflower Mama, and I am so excited. Today, I am showing you my piping practice workbook. By the way, this workbook is completely free to my email subscribers. If you want to get a copy, there's a link that you can use below the video. If you're already a subscriber, you should have a copy in your inbox. If you can't find it, just shoot me an email and I will make sure you get a copy. Okay, so what is this piping practice workbook? Well, I remember a little over a year ago when I first started decorating cakes, and I really wanted to practice my buttercream piping skills. I wanted to play with new piping tips, especially like floral tips and really fancy ones that I'd never used before. But I really hated the idea of baking a whole cake and then not really having any idea or confidence in what I'm doing. So rather than taking all of the time and the money to bake a cake and assemble a whole cake and then just kind of staring at it, feeling really sweaty and anxious because you just finally realize, oh, well, okay, now what? What do? I don't want to mess it up. We don't need to do that. We can just practice on our templates, and then we can go to the cake. Extremely confident and ready to decorate. So the templates and the guides that I've made are like a series of shapes and lines that I thought would be really helpful as a way to create, repetition, practice consistency, practice spacing. So I've got templates with circles and lines on them, so you can practice like rosettes or buttercream swirls. Once you feel like you've got like your sizing consistency down, then you can practice, just piping in a straight line for accuracy. I've also got a couple of templates that have like just a big circle on them, and they have the measurements in the middle. This one is actually a 6-inch circle. I've also got some templates with larger circles on them to reflect the top of a cake so that you could practice, if you wanted to do those big fancy swirls on the top, you can practice just spacing those out. I've got a 6-inch and then I've got an 8 and a 10-inch. They're split onto 2 separate pages so that you can kind of just smush them together and line those pages up to have a larger circle to practice on. When it comes to cake tops, you can even practice, you could practice your writing. Speaking of writing, I also have a few different font templates so that you can practice, writing in buttercream, which is something that I am terrible at and I desperately need to practice. And if you would just rather go all in on a cake and just make it, practice on it, decorate it, do that. Something that I like to do, it's really popular in the baking and decorating community, is to make a zombie cake. It's just basically a layer cake that you never plan to eat, crumb coat it, you decorate it, and then when you're done with the decorations, once you've taken your pictures or you've gotten your practice in, then you strip it all down and you redecorate it again. It lives in your freezer and you just pull it out of the freezer anytime you want to decorate, and you never eat it because it's disgusting. But if you don't have room for a zombie cake, or if you just are like, yeah, I'd rather not go through the trouble of making a cake, or maybe you do a lot of baking for others, and in between that time, you just want to practice, these are for you. I will say it's a lot easier to scrape the frosting off of these templates than it is to scrape the frosting off of the top of a cake and then have to re-smooth the top and all of that nonsense. So let me go ahead and show you how I like to use these, and we'll go from there. So I'm gonna start with these 2 templates. I have the buttercream swirl and rosette template here. Then I also have the cake top template for the 6-inch cake top with the spaces to practice buttercream swirls. To use these templates, we're just gonna lay them out on a flat surface. I'm gonna cover them with parchment paper. In the past, I have also used saran wrap. It's just kind of clingy. You could use a large, maybe a gallon-sized bag. I'm not sure if that would be big enough. You could maybe cut some of the templates out into a way that would fit into a gallon-sized bag. Or if you're really fancy and you have a laminator, I wish I had a laminator, you could laminate these, which would be awesome.
If you want to tape the guides to the countertop, go for it. I'm not going to because then they kind of get torn up a little bit around the edges. They don't
We're just gonna tape the parchment paper to the countertop. All right, so I'm gonna start with a 1M piping tip. This is a Wilton piping tip. It's definitely one of the more popular piping tips. It has this star. This is what you use to get those big, luscious, like cupcake swirls and, you know, plumes on top of a cake and all of that stuff. I use this one so often. I use it for cake tops, like swirls, rosettes, ruffles, all kinds of things. Before we get started, I'll show you how I hold my piping bag. So you have the bag filled, you have the tip, you have the back of the bag. You want to make sure that you have the bag twisted and you want to clamp it between your thumb and your index finger. You can buy clamps or like rubber bands or something to hold it closed, but even with that, I still try to hold it here just in case those fail. So then you're gonna kind of cup the back of the bag with this hand, and this is where you're going to apply the pressure to push the frosting out of the bag. In this hand, or whichever hand you're using, I'm holding the bag with my left hand and I'm guiding it with my right hand. You may be the opposite way, but whichever hand is not, you know, holding the bag is just gonna be sort of guiding it along. And you're really not applying pressure with this hand, you're just applying pressure here so that you push the frosting down the bag, and rather than pushing the frosting out here and pushing frosting up the bag, because then it's gonna be coming up out the bag, and you don't want that. So for a rosette, you're going to start in the center. You're going to pipe a little dollop in the center, and while continuously applying a little bit of pressure, just swirl out and around that dollop. And once you're finished, stop applying pressure and lift and pull the tip away from the frosting. So we'll go ahead and do some more of those. So we're going to start with our dollop in the center, gently swirl around while continuously applying pressure. And once you're finished, stop squeezing the bag and lift the tip away from the frosting. This is it, you know, a little bit faster. There's no, you know, no competition for how fast you can make rosettes, but they actually are pretty quick once you get the hang of them. In these little spaces here, I'm just gonna practice some little stars. You're just going to pipe straight down into the center here and apply a little bit of pressure, stop applying pressure, and lift. And there you have a little star or like a little flower shape, whatever you want to call it. So there's another, apply a little pressure, lift. And I like these because you can also make these different heights. So that's where we stopped before, but if you apply even more pressure and lift just a little bit, you start to get some ruffles. Do that again. And you have like a more ruffly kind of flower. I'm gonna just kind of practice here, just kind of experiment and make some big ruffly stars here. Let's see how tall we can go. Ooh, that looks nice. See, those would look really nice on top of a cake. That's what I love about practicing with these templates. You can just kind of mess around and experiment with different ways to use the same tip. So we have here, we just have a straight line. You could practice anything if you just want to practice piping in a straight line for accuracy, but I just want to show you how I like to do sometimes like some little wavy little ruffles. So this is a great place to practice just being very consistent with the width of the ruffle, keeping it very consistent. You could also practice a rope border here. And so a rope border is a little bit trickier, but you're going to, it's like as if we took these rosettes and turned them on their side. So you're gonna have to kind of imagine a little bit with me, but you make a dollop, you make a starting point, you start to kind of turn your piping bag to the side and just pipe in a small circle sideways, essentially. And this does require practice. The rope border is really tricky for me because you have to be consistently applying pressure, and honestly, sometimes my hand just gets tired and then I stop and it looks a little wonky. So anyway, great place to practice that. We have our 6-inch cake top template with the smaller circles for practicing those swirls. And we're just gonna experiment here with some different sizes and shapes of swirls just to show you how diverse this 1M tip is. And to show you that with just some very basic understanding of how to achieve a shape, you can really fine-tune it to your own liking and make it really unique and make it your own. So to create those swirls, we're basically going back to the ruffles that we just did, but we're just going to build them up. So we're gonna start in the middle, swirl around the outside, and once you come back to that starting point, you're going to lift up slightly and scoot your tip in slightly to make a smaller circle. Then you're gonna just keep doing that. Just keep building upwards and a little bit tighter each time you go around. And once you're done, stop applying pressure and lift. And you have a nice little swirl there. Mine is actually a little uneven because I had my head tilted to the side for some reason. I really don't know why. So let me just do one with my head like in a normal position and show you what mine look like. Boop. You know, if you want to make them a little smaller, you can. Make them a little shorter. You can make them, you know, a little bit bigger, a little more like rounded. You can make them a little bit more, you know, a little bit tighter, a little bit more triangular. But this is kind of like my go-to. Just kind of a little medium size, almost like a rounded shape there. So these are all a little bit different and they're all special in their own way. And you could use this place to practice making different shapes, see which one you like the best. And then you can also use this to practice piping the same shape consistently, the same size, the same style. Do whatever you want here with that. Then finally, in the 6-inch circle, we're gonna use this to practice spacing out these little swirls consistently. You could do this however you want. So I usually like to space these out one across from the other. That helps me to stay pretty consistent with the spacing. But I'm just gonna try to kind of freestyle it here and just go around in a circle and see how well I do. It's also another great time to practice consistency and size and styling. Hi. Oh, what's Mama doing? Ha-ee. Okay, so I mean, that's not so bad. I only did 5. I normally do 6. If I would have done my little, you know, one across from the other kind of trick, probably would have worked out a little bit better. Do you want to say goodbye with me? Oh no! Oh no! All right, well, that is all that I have for you today.
We're gonna keep that close for the show.
I will make another video showing you a few more of the templates in the workbook and showing you a few more of my favorite piping tips to use for cake decorating. But until then, make sure you get a copy of your workbook. There's a link below the video here if you're not already subscribed to my emails. If you are subscribed, check your inbox. You should have a copy. If not, let me know. I'll get it to you. That is all. Enjoy your cake decorating and we'll see you next time.
You wanna touch it? You want some frosting?